You are on Tips and Streams with your host, Coca.
What's good, everyone? Welcome back to Tips and Streams. I'm Kokan, and I hope you're doing well and feeling locked in wherever you're listening from. All right, let's get to the daily picks. I've got 4 NBA matchups on the card today, so buckle up. We're diving straight into the action. The first prediction for today's NBA games is for the game between the Charlotte Hornets and the Orlando Magic. When I look at this matchup in Orlando, the first thing I do is step back and examine the situation, not just the names on the jerseys. And for me, this game is all about timing, rhythm, and how teams respond when the spotlight isn't exactly comfortable. Orlando comes into this one after that rough ending to the Europe trip, and honestly, I didn't love what I saw in that last game. Getting buried early, playing catch-up all night, struggling to take care of the ball. Those are red flags, especially for a team that wants to be taken seriously in the Eastern Conference. Yes, they had multiple guys score in double figures, but the flow wasn't there. The offense felt forced, the pace felt rushed, and when the shots stopped falling, there wasn't a clear plan B. Now, I do respect Orlando at home. They're physical, they get to the line, and defensively, they're usually locked in. But coming back from a long overseas stretch, I always question timing. Legs don't feel the same. Rotations come a half second late, and decision-making tends to lag. That matters, especially against a team that plays loose and aggressive. That brings me to Charlotte. This Hornets team doesn't always win games, but they compete, and from a betting perspective, they've been one of the most reliable teams in tricky scheduling spots. I know how crazy it sounds, but this group has consistently shown they can handle the second night of a back-to-back better than most. They don't overthink it. They get out, push the tempo, and let their guards create chaos. For me, the key is health and continuity. With LaMelo Ball on the floor, everything changes. The ball moves quicker, the spacing improves, and suddenly Charlotte looks like a team that can score in waves. Brandon Miller has taken another step forward, showing real composure and shot making. And when those two are clicking, Charlotte becomes uncomfortable to guard, especially as an underdog. I also love how Charlotte responds after losses. This isn't a group that folds. They usually bounce back with energy and effort. Even defensively, while they're not elite, they do just enough to hang around, and that's all I'm asking for here. I don't need them to dominate. I need them to compete for 48 minutes. Orlando may end up winning the game outright. I won't argue that. They're deeper, they're rested, and they'll want to make a statement at home. But this number feels inflated. It's pricing Orlando at their absolute best and Charlotte at their worst, and I don't see that gap on the floor right now. So when I weigh the travel spot, the recent form, the way Charlotte has handled no-rest situations, and the overall matchup dynamics, my play becomes very clear. I'm taking the Charlotte Hornets to cover the 7.5-point spread in Orlando. This is about value, resilience, and trusting what the numbers and my eyes have been telling me all season. Today's second prediction is for the game between the Chicago Bulls and Minnesota Timberwolves. When I sit down and really dig into this matchup, I don't just look at the standings or the headline results. I look at how teams behave in these exact situations. And this is one of those classic NBA spots where context matters more than reputation. Minnesota comes into this game bruised mentally. Blowing a big lead on the road, especially after controlling 3 quarters, leaves a mark. I've watched this league long enough to know that some teams respond with discipline, and some teams respond by pressing, rushing shots, and trying to win the game in the first 6 minutes. Minnesota has shown plenty of talent this season, but they've also shown a habit of getting uncomfortable when things don't go perfectly, especially late in games. Anthony Edwards can score with anyone in this league, no question, but I keep going back to how this team handles momentum swings. When the game tightens up, Minnesota tends to rely heavily on individual shot making instead of flowing through their offense. That's a dangerous habit when you're laying a big number. Now, on the other side, Chicago is not a team I blindly trust, especially away from home, but this version of the Bulls is competing. What I like is the way they're moving the ball and sharing the load. This is a group that doesn't need one guy to carry them for 48 minutes. When they're at their best, they play connected basketball, stretch the floor, and force defenses to guard multiple actions instead of just one star. Chicago's recent performances tell me they're comfortable playing as the underdog. They're not rushing possessions. They're taking good shots early in the clock when they're available, and they're staying aggressive even when the other team makes a run. That matters when you're catching double digits. I also can't ignore Minnesota's tendency to let teams hang around. I've seen too many games where they build a cushion, ease off the gas, and suddenly the fourth quarter turns into a grind. That's exactly the kind of game script that favors a team getting points. So when I put everything together, Minnesota's recent collapses, Chicago's willingness to scrap for 48 minutes, and the size of this number, I don't need the Bulls to win this game outright. I just need them to stay within striking distance, and I believe they absolutely can. My money is on the Chicago Bulls to cover the 11-point spread in Minnesota. I expect Minnesota to win the game, but I see Chicago hanging around, competing possession by possession, and making this far too close for such a big number. The third prediction for today is for the game between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Los Angeles Clippers. When I look at this Lakers-Clippers matchup at the Intuit Dome, I see a rivalry game that looks simple on paper, but is anything but once you dig into the layers. And honestly, this is one of those spots where I trust rhythm, balance, and reliability over raw star power. Yes, the Lakers come in with momentum. I watched that comeback against Denver closely, and what Luka did in the second half was elite basketball. He controlled tempo, dictated matchups, and closed the game like a true alpha. LeBron was steady, smart, and efficient, and that late defensive push showed exactly why this team still scares people. But here's my concern, and it's one I've had all season. I don't trust the Lakers to bring that level every single night. This roster leans heavily on Luka and LeBron to solve problems, and when the supporting cast goes quiet, things get shaky fast. Austin Reeves being out only magnifies that issue. I've seen too many stretches where the Lakers fall behind early, spend energy chasing the game, and leave themselves no margin for error. That style can work occasionally, but it's not something I'm betting on consistently, especially in a rivalry game where emotion is already running high. Now flip it to the Clippers. That loss in Chicago? I'm throwing it out. What matters to me is the bigger picture. This team has been playing some of its best basketball in weeks. James Harden has been in full control mode, reading defenses, getting to his spots, and creating clean looks for others. Ivica Zubac has been owning the glass, giving them interior stability, and John Collins has quietly been a difference maker with his energy and shot selection. Kawhi Leonard's status obviously matters, and I'm watching that closely. But what stands out to me is this. I've seen the Clippers stay competitive in this matchup even without him. They're comfortable in their roles, they execute late, and they don't panic when games get tight. That matters against a Lakers team that still rides emotional waves. At the Intuit Dome, the Clippers play with purpose. They defend with more discipline, they control pace better, and they don't beat themselves. In a rivalry game that I expect to be physical, intense, and possession by possession late, that's the side I trust. I'm riding with the Clippers to win this game against the Lakers. It won't be easy, it won't be pretty, but I believe their balance, composure, and home court edge carry them through when it matters most. Today's last prediction is for the game between the Miami Heat and the Portland Trail Blazers. When I break this game down, I start with rhythm, rest, and context, and all three lean heavily toward Portland tonight. Miami comes into this one feeling good about themselves after lighting up Sacramento, and I'll give them credit for that offensive burst. But I'm looking deeper than one hot shooting night. This is still a Heat team grinding through a long road swing, and I never love this spot for them when the legs start getting heavy and the margin for error shrinks. Back-to-back travel, limited prep time, and another Western Conference building that brings real energy. That matters. Portland, on the other hand, is sitting in a completely different lane right now. I've watched this team closely over the last couple of weeks, and what stands out isn't just wins, it's how they're winning. They're playing connected basketball, defending with purpose, and getting real production from their core, night after night. This isn't a fluky ball. This is a confidence ball. The rest advantage is huge here. Portland has had time to breathe, reset, and prepare specifically for Miami's pace and spacing. That shows up early in games, sharper rotations, better closeouts, and more juice in transition. When you combine that with how well the Blazers have been protecting their home floor lately, this becomes a tough environment for any road team, especially one that hasn't been reliable away from home all season. From a matchup standpoint, I like how Portland can attack Miami inside and force them to defend without fouling. Free throws swing games like this, and Portland has quietly done an excellent job of getting downhill and cashing in when it matters. On the perimeter, they're not overly reliant on one shooter. Scoring comes in waves, which makes defensive game planning a nightmare. Miami's offense can absolutely pop, but consistency has been the issue. When they don't get that early rhythm, they tend to press, and that's where turnovers and empty possessions creep in. Against a rested Portland squad that's playing disciplined basketball, those mistakes are magnified. I've been doing this long enough to know when a team is peaking at the right moment, and Portland checks every box for me tonight. Form, rest, confidence, and situation. I'm not trying to get cute here. I'm trusting what my eyes and the numbers are telling me. I'm riding with the Portland Trail Blazers to win this game at home. This is their spot, their building, and their moment. My money is on Portland to take care of business in front of their crowd.